they do at times receive funds for those services, and what they would like to do is to take those funds and retain them for the purposes of immunization and emergency dispensing clinics to offset those costs. I don't have a dollar amount, for town meeting. There'll need to be a dollar amount established, and what department has jurisdiction over the account. Request is just received as of today. Next on the list is the request that's come in from the really multiple sponsors. It would be the Park and Recreation Commission, the Land Utilization Committee, and the Hillview Commission. And it involves providing for funding to supplement the amount of money that had been previously set aside in the Hillview Commission capital budget. You recall that Hillview had already set aside $60,000 for the purposes of constructing the pavilion over at Ipswich River Park. So the current budgetary shortfall is about $89,450, call it $90,000. And so the Park and Recreation Commission would like to go ahead and apply for different grants, engage in fundraising through the LUC for purposes of funding the remaining portion of that pavilion structure. As I look at it here, the request does not seem to imply that the town will be funding this other than through those alternative revenue sources.
What is the anticipated amount they're looking for?
Total amount of the project is $149,450, of which $60,000 was previously appropriated in the Hillview capital budget. And I can't recall specifically when it was, but it was set aside for that purpose.
Right.
Yeah. It's been a while ago.
It's been a while. And
for a 30 by 60 structure, they want to put, a pavilion in. I don't know if the position where it's going to go in IRP is settled yet, but initially they were talking about putting up on top of that new septic system portion of the land.
Okay, and then we have Housing Authority.
I put that on as really a reminder. There was a 3-year option that the board did vote to extend a year ago. You may issue a 1-year extension on the option that was granted to the Housing Authority. You recall they applied for a grant a couple of times and been turned down. It is not necessary to put an article on, and I would suggest that what will happen is that the next meeting, if you're okay, the board can vote to extend the agreement for an additional year. And that will.
We already have the authorization from town meeting to do
yes,
it anyway. So
yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do, and it's just a formality. If you look at what the article said, it says for good cause. Good cause is obviously the fact that they're still diligently applying for these funds for purposes of elderly housing, and so we will put in a request before you at your next meeting, and if it's approved, there'll be no need for any action at town meeting.
Well, yeah, there wouldn't be a need anyway.
Right. That's good. Yep. So next item is amendment of the town code concerning any charter changes that will be proposed by the board.
I'd like to have a discussion of that and kind of zero in on those items that we can all agree on getting done through the administrative process. And I think there were 2 separate pathways that could be taken. We should also decide on which pathway we're going to take. Schedule that for our next meeting. Is everybody going to be there?
Yeah.
What?
I said the path of least resistance.
So that'll be our meeting on
September 13th.
Should we have Barbara attend to that
September
discussion?
13th. We're not meeting.
Have we solicited food
No, the 7th.
7th. That's a Tuesday
The 7th.
after Labor Day.
I thought we decided not to meet that night.
Yeah,
I thought it was the
that's right, we did.
13th.
I think you're right.
Right, they don't meet.
Next meeting,
So I guess
the 13th.
if we're gonna wait till the 13th, like we said, we should, if necessary, plan on having a 3rd meeting in September prior to October town meeting, if necessary.
Yeah, so that'd be the 20th, right? We're already meeting the 13th and the 27th.
See, we said we're meeting the 13th.
I believe the 27th.
And the 27th.
And then 27.
And the 27th. So if it looks like we have more on our plate than we can handle on the 13th and the 27th, an option would be to meet on the 20th. Well, I mean, it would only be if you don't want to spend until 2 in the morning on the 27th.
Is it 13th to 27th and when?
I'm sorry?
Is it 13th to 27th?
27th is already set.
Right.
Possibly the 20th.
Possibly the 20th
20th.
needed.
Next article deals with appropriation of the rebates that were received from Reading Municipal Light Department for the energy conservation improvements. The amount that's available under phase one is $13,049. The amount of the rebates under phase two is to be determined. Hopefully we'll have those dollars in hand for town meeting. And then a companion article would be to proceed with phase three, as recommended by the Energy Study Committee for various conservation measures throughout buildings, municipal school buildings going forward.
What was phase 3, Jeff?
I was afraid you asked me that question.
You don't have
I
an
think
answer.
we were looking,
He's on vacation.
yeah, I'm on vacation, right. We were looking at the schools. We don't know what the status of the secondary school is going to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't make any investments in that yet.
And, you know, that was one of the areas that we were looking at, two of the areas, I should say. But no, we're going beyond that, and at the moment, it's escaping me what it is, so I apologize for that.
I need to know what that is.
I will send you an email on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Final article deals with upgrading and improvements to the fire protection roads in the area of Swan Pond. We would anticipate that what we would be utilizing is some of the residual unspent borrowings through various DPW projects to make some necessary improvements to those fire protection roadways. I don't have a dollar amount, I just received the request.
And it's being sponsored by the DPW.
It is, and as I said, we've already identified that there is some residual project money that's available to assist the capital improvement plan. That would be monies from the town hall roof project, the library exterior painting, and then if we go way back, we identified that there's some money available from the Swan Pond water tank construction project. So it's hopeful we can utilize those sources of funds.
Okay, and does Dick have a game plan as to what's being proposed?
For that particular aspect, no, I don't. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I just received the request. And I will make sure that when it is received, that you get it before the board. But, yeah, we'll make sure that it does go off on its own.
Okay, we're gonna discuss next the strategic plan, and I had asked Mike and Sean to work, try to pull some little results of our planning session. Mike came up with an outline of a strategic plan summary, which I thought was a good format to begin to create a full-size strategic plan document. And
Pass those on to Jeff.
this is just a couple of updates that were made from what was in the packet. I'll turn it over to Mike.
If you want, I have the projector, we can put it up on the screen, or we can just work from the sheets I handed you
Why
out.
don't we do that?
Yeah, projector
Just
we
that
get.
way,
Give me 1 second.
Is this different from what was emailed to us?
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
No. Nothing you see tonight is different from what you were having off.
Huh, looks different, that's why I was
he
wondering.
had emailed out, I think, a couple couple of corrections.
Yeah,
Right.
I
So
spent
if you
a
have
little time over the weekend.
version
cleaning up the
7 is
grammar.
marked them, which you probably you were reading.
Pestering me with emails.
Want to share? No thank you. Appreciate it.
Be nice someday when we can integrate the output directly to the computer to the screen,
Yeah.
rather than use the camera. When is that coming, by the way? Oh, you can't hear me. When having ability to directly transmit what's on the computer.
Oh, we're having a scan converter? In other words, it converts VGA signal to a composite video signal? Or
No,
SD?
so that we can, whatever we put up on the screen, the audience can see directly rather than through the camera.
Exactly what
Yeah.
exactly the
When
device.
when will we have that?
We have to go get one of those. They're not a low ticket item, but we'll work on that.
Would you kind of put it on the list of things that would be very useful to have?
Oh, absolutely, it is. Again, it's funding.
I understand, but I think as a board, we're moving forward to use more of this
Oh,
kind of media.
absolutely. I've used them plenty of times in other communities, so.
Okay.
Okay, so let me briefly tell you what you have there at the end. I'll grab my notes. And again, nothing on those pieces of paper are in stone. Just a continuation of our working session that we started out at the Hillview Country Club a few months ago. And Greg, actually, his staff did a great job taking the initial notes, getting them into this format, and Sean and I have been working together to just refine them a little bit and then throw some potential suggested changes. And I also try to solicit comments from the board, which I have incorporated here in these slides. So we'll go through one at a time, and I'll point out whose comment it is. It may be difficult to see. I try to use color variations to point out the changes, and I know it's a little difficult when you see it on the screen, but on your handouts, you should see them pretty easily. So this first slide is our mission statement. And when we walked away out of the Hillview, everything in black is exactly what we talked about here. The one thing that Sean and I discussed as we were pulling it together was maybe get rid of the word convincing, because we really don't need to be convincing in the process of the mission statement. And really talk about proving to the public. And that was really the feedback. Your intention wasn't for me to read the whole mission statement, was it? Okay, good. So then, I got some feedback from Jeff and Greg and Bob. They agreed that it's probably a good idea to change it away, or get rid of the convincing, go away from proving. I've also had a little bit of time to think about this since we've done all this, and I've come up with another mission statement that I wanted to throw out at you. Just some slight changes, and I have discussed it with Sean, and I don't think really we'll use a lot of it, but the points that Sean had agreed that we probably should discuss tonight is maybe not change any of the stuff you see up here in the green, but really leave the Board of Selectmen words in there, because it just seemed odd to me when we wrote in the initial mission statement, we used the word it, refer to us as its, and it just didn't sit well. So I wanted to just propose to you guys that we replace it with Board of Selectmen, if that's okay. If you like the word it and we refer to it as an it, we'll leave it as an it. I'm just being a little nitpicky, but at this point, I think we're over that hump to really get this nailed down, get our mission statement nailed down, our vision statement nailed down, and move on. Yes, Jeff?
Yes, with regard to the it versus the Board of Selectmen, the it is the mission statement,
Yes.
correct? So, and I think that's why at that time we chose that word. The Board of Selectmen shall seek, I mean, maybe that is okay, but I understand why we chose it
Yeah.
versus,
I'm
you know,
just
Board of
asking,
Selectmen.
and we can
you
just
know,
move on. It literally
you know.
should take us, if you feel comfortable with it, and everyone else does.
Yeah,
let's
either
move
way,
on.
it doesn't matter to me,
I
but
like the way,
it's-
I like this, it doesn't bother me at all, I like it.
I think, Mike, the idea was to compress the mission statement down as much as possible by not putting unnecessary words in place.
And let's, if you guys are comfortable with it, then let's go change the convincing to proving, and we can move on. I was just throwing another option out there.
yeah,
Anyone else have any strong feelings about that?
yeah, we're trying to be concise with what we.
Okay. Okay,
Move
so,
ahead.
in that strategic plan, executive summary, any change we make here, I will
follow up and update the strategic plan.